the art scene, the literary scene is not about artists anymore, it's a market. So can you speak to any interaction that Cosmoetica has had with the established scene?
Well, I have in the course of especially in the course of doing these interviews contacted many academics. I can tell you, for example, I mentioned the first I think essay I ever wrote for Cosmoetica was on Harold Bloom, and I had a brief 2 or 3 email back and forth with him back in '01, and I said, uh, I would be willing to post something of yours and get into some kind of a dialogue. He was not interested, of course. Um, I personally, my wife, we've of course sent around for many years. We had sent around to different big name presses and even college presses and uh, agents. We'd sent around to. I think literary agency is a joke personally because most of them are frustrated artists themselves, and they don't have the there's. I think one of the big problems in art today is that people uh, people want to just express things, but they don't want to do anything that is going to get out further, to probe deeper. They just feel that their expression is worthy alone, and to me that's ridiculous. As far as trying to get out and my interactions with academics, specifically in the arts or writing, I have done some of these interviews. I did an interview with 3 Herman Melville experts, and my wife Jessica pointed out that at one point late in the interview, one of the gals who was the interviewed, I was talking about Melville's poetry and how Melville's poetry sucks vis-a-vis his prose, and she was sort of taken aback by it because like many academics, they look at things and they don't see things in a qualitative way. Unfortunately, they look at art as simply biographical. Now, sure, if I write a book about topic A, B, or C, obviously I have an interest in it. Why does Schneider have an interest in A, B, or C? That's an interesting question, perhaps, but it's not the thing that is the most important about why I may have written books A, B, or C. When I say Melville's poetry was bad in comparison to his prose, that really isn't a biographical fact. That's simply a fact of the qualitative, and we can talk about objective versus subjective nature and whatnot. But that's basically just a brute fact that Melville was a better prose writer than a poet, just as Whitman was a much better poet than a prose writer. It doesn't say anything particularly interesting about his biology. This woman, however, went on in the way many academics do, and was trying to say, well, when he wrote, was it Christabel or whatever his god awful long poem was? I remember reading it 25, 30 years ago. That this says a lot about his opinion about this or that. Yeah, but it's ultimately a bumper sticker because it's not. It doesn't say anything. If I can. If you ask me 100 political opinions or 100 philosophical opinions about something, I could give you the answers as best I could, of course. But so what? That's just my opinion about that particular thing. That doesn't necessarily say anything particular about me. I could be a civil libertarian, for example, and I am a civil libertarian. I'm for civil liberties, but I'm not a member of the Libertarian Party. They're a bunch of joke wackos that are for corporations. So when I say something like that, that doesn't mean that I endorse other people who claim it. That doesn't say anything about me, my root political belief. This woman, however, did feel that kind of way, that the poetry, however bad it was by Melville, said something about Melville. So when I have, for example, tried to get people to be interviewed either in written or video form, when I have sent around and gone back and forth with some people who may have had a brief interest in something that I had written, it does get frustrating because these people are not really about the art. The creative writing programs that were established after World War II are more about a political view of life and the universe than an artistic, creative one. The problem is that they feel that art is all politics, and certainly art can have politics. I've written many a poem, many a even reviews, not even creative writing, that express a political opinion. But you cannot make the political element of the art primary. Otherwise, it's a bumper sticker. You have, if I was to write something, even like an Aesop's fable about the city mouse and the country mouse or something, sure, that's going to say something about my ideas on urban versus rural living, but that has to be subsumed into the art, how I say the thing. Because ultimately, if all it is a bumper sticker, I don't know of anyone who's ever been on their deathbed and said, "Oh, that keep on trucking, R. Crumb, that made my day." No, that's a bumper sticker. But Moby Dick, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, a poem by Sylvia Plath or by Rainer Maria Rilke, people will remember that. They will remember the image from a great Goya painting. But these trite political things, they fade away. And that's one of the main problems that I've had with academia, is that these people are about these small, ephemeral little things. You probably read, Susie, you at least you probably have heard of a poet named uh, John Dryden. Back even 50 years ago, say in the mid 20th century, Dryden was still considered one of the bigger name poets, along with a Milton and a Shakespeare back in the 17th century. But if you actually read John Dryden, his verse is, I guess you could say, competently constructed, but all it is basically the National Enquirer of the day. A lot of gossip about wars and dukes and duchesses and the behind the scenes cabals of power, and it doesn't get to the root of the things that the best sonnet or the best play of Shakespeare does. It doesn't get into what the best holy sonnets or even the best sermons of a John Donne does, or the best stuff that Milton has put forth. And that's because it's ephemeral. John Dryden was sort of the Harold Bloom, or I wouldn't even say Harold Bloom. He was sort of maybe the John Updike of his day. Stuff that you could argue is competently wrought, but no one's going to be reading John Updike or John Cheever or these New Yorker type, the people who wrote New Yorker type prose stories of the mid 20th century, because even now they are of another era. They are as removed from today's realm and today's society, almost to the degree that the 17th century England of Dryden, Shakespeare, and Milton was.